Oh hey, I didn't see you there. Why don't we head up to the classroom? Why don't we take the time to learn about a special country in Asia? This country has 4 main islands, and it's called Japan. It has many interesting aspects, so why don't we learn about it? About 30,000 years ago, people had first come to Japan. At the time, the main islands right here were connected to Siberia and Korea by bridges of dry land, so people crossed by foot to the land. The first society, called the Jomon culture, arose about 12,000 years ago. Around the same time, the Ainu people arrived by boat from Siberia to the land. It then became warmer and icebergs melted, making this land into islands. In the year 10,000 BC, there are people living between mountains, eating nuts on trees and using the latest technology like stones and bowls. The Jomon and Ainu survived for thousands of years, hunting, fishing, and gathering plants. In 300 BC, the Yayoi people came to Honshu Island from Korea and China. The outside world had technology from the future, like really good metal. The Yayoi people were skilled weavers, tool makers, and farmers who began cultivating rice and flooded paddy fields. In 660 BC, Jimmu Tenno came to power as Japan's first emperor. In 593 AD, a new prince, Prince Shotoku, wanted everyone to try this religion. Please try out this religion, he said, but everyone said no. Please, he begged, but everyone said no, but this time a little quieter. So the new religion, Buddhism, came to place. Emperors controlled Japan until the 12th century AD, when military rulers called shoguns controlled Japan and ruled by might. Knock knock, it's Europe, and they're not here to take over. They simply just want to sell clocks, guns, and introduce Christianity. In 1635, the ruling shogun closed Japan to foreigners and forbade Japanese to travel abroad, entering into a period of isolationism. This meant other countries weren't just allowed to come over to Japan. Now that the entire country wasn't at war fighting over power, the population increased, business increased, roads increased, literature increased, and everyone learned to read. There were puppet shows and poetry and Dutch studies when people studied geography, skeletons, physics, chemistry, astronomy. They studied all of this with books that they bought from the Dutch. This isolation lasted more than 200 years. Knock knock, it's the United States with huge boats with guns. With this expedition, Matthew Perry would lead it. They said open the country and stop having it be closed. Japan and the United States signed the contract that would let the United States, Britain, and Russia visit Japan anytime. During this, Japan had signed the Treaty of Kanagawa in 1854. The islands overthrew the shoguns in 1868 and emperors returned. Emperor Meiji was finalizing the end of the shoguns. This was a time of great change and modernization for Japan. Japan made a new constitution, the Meiji Constitution, that was pretty Western. And they also made a new military. So Japan decided to conquer Korea in 1894, taking it from its previous owner, China. So then they decide to conquer a little bit further in the Liaodong Peninsula. Russia comes in and says, stop, you can't do that. We were going to build a railroad here to try to get some warm water. So they build their railroad while supervised by a lot of soldiers. Japan asks if Russia can maybe chill, but Russia asks if Japan can maybe chill. But Japan is also kind of scared of Russia. And guess who else is also scared of Russia? The United Kingdom of Great Britain. So Great Britain and Japan make an alliance in 1902 so they can be a little less scared of Russia. It's the 1900s and weapons are getting crazy, so the world is about to have a war. During World War I, 1914 to 1918, Japan fought on the side of the U.S. Meanwhile, Japan has had fun conquering land. So Japan wants more land to conquer, and tiny islands to the south which belong to Germany. Germany had just had war declared on by Britain because Britain was friends with Belgium, which was being trespassed by Germany in order to fight France because France is friends with Russia, who was getting ready to fight Austria-Hungary because Austria was to fight Serbia because someone from Serbia shot the leader of Austria. Britain is currently friends with Japan, so obviously Japan should take the islands. Japan technically won the war, so Japan got to attend the Paris Peace Conference. Japan got to sit at the negotiation table with the big dudes to decide who keeps what. And Japan gets to keep all the islands they stole from Germany. And also gets to join the League of Nations, an alliance of countries who tries not to take over the world. The Great Depression is effective in 1929, so Japan's economy is bad, but the military is doing just fine. So Japan decides to invade some of Asia's land on the east coast. So, Germany, Japan, and Italy decided to become friends because they had so much in common, like trying to take over the world and needing friends. Germany started to invade the neighbors. Then, they invaded the neighbors' neighbors. Then, the neighbors' neighbors' neighbors, who also happened to be Great Britain, who also had the U.S. to help them. The United States didn't help Japan because our friends and their friends aren't friends, plus they are planning to take over the world. The U.S. still hadn't joined the war, but they are still working on an atomic bomb just in case. But on December 7th, 1941, Japan bombed the United States Navy fleet at Pearl Harbor in Hawaii, and the U.S. entered World War II. So the U.S. helped the gang get Germany back into Germany. From 1941 to 1945, Japan's military leaders fought against the U.S. and the Allied forces. In August 1945, the United States dropped atomic bombs on the Japanese cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, killing about 115,000 people. Japan surrendered a few days later. The United States also understood the strategic importance of using foreign assistance and other tools to aid and rebuild post-war Japan. Between 1946 and 1952, Washington invested $2.2 billion or $18 billion in real 21st century dollars adjusted for inflation in Japan's reconstruction effort. The United States also helped Japan install a new government for just the right ingredients for a post-war economic miracle. And in the 1900s, Japan starts making TVs, VCRs, automobiles, and camcorders. They make them as fast as they can and better than everyone else. Their economy goes wild and then the miracle wears off. Learning about Japan's interesting history was quite a journey.